Good evening. It's actually afternoon. It's 4:11 p.m. on August 15th, 2020. It's come to my attention that some things occurred in the past that have not been disclosed, not even been disclosed to me. And it's sort of a mystery, but more than a mystery, it's a crime. A short time ago, I was looking up some information concerning an investigation I had been a part of when I was an editor at a newspaper in Chicago. It had to do with the campaign to end the death penalty. And specifically, I was investigating aspects of the movement that ended it that involved the wrongful incarceration of a number of people alleged to have committed capital crimes for which they were sentenced to death. The allegations stemmed around a police officer in Chicago who was in charge of an area, a police department, that routinely tortured people into confessing to capital crimes. And it was these confessions upon which were based the prosecutions that led to the prescription of death as a penalty. This was concerning to me because while I worked at that publication, I also wrote an article with somebody else who first brought my attention to it concerning the 1996 Anti-Terrorist and Effective Death Penalty Act. At that time, there was a Palestinian American who was living in an area of the Chicagoland area that was known to have a very large diaspora Palestinian community. The allegations were that at some point the FBI came to his house without a search warrant, took him forcibly out of his house, and secretly detained him. There was a trial concerning allegations that he was involved with financing acts of terrorism in the Middle East, that he had been a participant in laundering money through a Muslim charity in order to finance these acts of terrorism, and that the basis upon which his conviction in the United States was to be secured was on a confession that he alleged was tortured out of him when he was in a detention facility in Israel. This was an article I wrote and I published while I was managing editor at Streetwise newspaper in Chicago. There was a considerable amount of controversy. This was right around the time when the Clinton administration had added a number of organizations to its list of designated terrorist organizations, the majority of which were identified as Palestinian. This changed the distribution of identified terrorist organizations substantially. Prior to the addition of these specific terrorist organizations, the breakdown in terms of source origin or location of origin or the political tendency with which terrorism organizationally was identified in the United States was very different. But the crucial matter here was that at a time when the city of Chicago was involved in a campaign to organize against police brutality based on torturing confessions for capital crimes out of people. There was also this move by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to secretly detain a Palestinian American and use a confession that he had been able to establish had been tortured out of him in an Israeli court so that he could be released. And then after he came to America, they were trying to use that confession, acquired at a facility in Israel, that the Israeli courts determined was not legitimate to justify conviction as part of an American proceeding to charge him with financing acts of terrorism. Now, I cannot acquire any of the articles I wrote while I was managing editor. Something happened, and whatever was actually the political life or reputation I had in Chicago, it has been disappeared. And what there is on the public record about my contributions as managing editor are not factually correct. As a matter of fact, there was a program for a fundraiser for that organization from last year that had information that mentioned me, but was factually incorrect. I bring this up because I'm not the only political candidate that has been disappeared. Why am I now saying I'm a political candidate? I didn't formally ever acknowledge or announce that I wished to seek public office until 2016. But there had been a substantial amount of time wherein my connection with the communities with which I had previously been involved had been terminated. And when I tried to reach out to them, the stories they told were different than the ones that I remembered. Even if I had a mental illness, even if I was schizophrenic, even if I was bipolar, and I had to get a mental health diagnosis, and I participated in a treatment program, and I accepted that medication was part of my treatment program. Should I be dispossessed of the capability to participate in ordinary political process, up to and including going to court in order to exercise my constitutional rights, and or to run for public office, including on a campaign that would involve addressing issues connected to mental health or intellectual property rights as they are associated with people that have had to receive some form of medical treatment, or people that are experiencing some sort of psychological duress due to inability to provide for themselves based on experiences of poverty and homelessness? Am I not eligible for political office because I had a mental illness? Even if you questioned my judgment because you actually believed I had a mental illness, that does not give anybody justification for depriving me of my constitutional rights to due process and or engagement in ordinary political process.